Hello, and thank you for joining us today here at the Bramble Patch. My name is Wendy, and on Technicals today we have Alicia. Once again, thank you so much for all the feedback we're receiving from you. It's all positive and everybody's well here. So I hope you're all safe as well. Today we're going to be looking at the technique Crazy Patchwork. And this is the technique, no fancy rulers, nothing in particular. In fact, there's very little rules to this particular technique. This is a technique I've been using for a long, long time. This bag I made over 20 years ago. And there's all sorts of bits and bobs, embellishments on here. If I'm lucky enough to receive flowers, confectionery that has ribbons, anything on it, I save them. Doesn't matter how big it is, I save them in my little scrap bag. And they go into my Crazy Patchwork. So this is a bag that I made, like I say, over 20 years ago. All right, lots and lots of bits and bobs. And if I go to shows or anything, I'll quite often pick up a metre of lace that I quite like the look of. Doesn't have to be any particular colour, and I put it in that bag. So I've got a really nice collection as and when I want to use it. So that's the little bag that I made. I've got a shop sample here. This is a cushion that was made at the Bramble Patch. We do a pattern for this one. It's not online, so if you're interested in the pattern for this, you would need to phone the shop up and then it could be posted out to you. But this is a pattern that we do have for purchase. A really nice one. So that's the little cushion. I've got a few other little bits and bobs that I've made here. This one, if you're thinking Valentine's Day or anything, this is really nice, just all in cream fabrics. Lots and lots of little bits of lace, embellishment, fancy stitches. Whenever I get a new sewing machine or get the opportunity to try a different machine, this is a technique that I'll use because I can run through and use lots and lots of the different decorative stitches, trialing different threads. So that's quite a nice opportunity to be doing that. These look actually really nice, this little heart, to actually hang on a wardrobe or a set of drawers. This will probably go to my youngest daughter because she's a fan of grey or cream. So that's a little heart. Again, these are something I made many, many years ago. This is just a little needle case. And you can see that I've actually embellished this with lots and lots of little beads. I've got lurex thread. I've fussy cut butterflies. I've done all sorts on here, but this is actually quite well worn now. And that's the back edge of it. This I took off of a garment that was going to be discarded. So you can do lots and lots of bits and bobs with that. There's even a bit of hand dyeing gone on in that one as well. All right, so a little needle case. This one is a rotary cutter case I still use. It can be used for glasses, anything like that. Just fun. Again, completely out of scraps. So this is actually the leftovers of something that I made a large item with. And this was an offcut. So rather than discard the whole lot, I just made a little rotary cutter case for when I go to classes to make sure that everything's safe and it's easy to identify in there. The last thing that I've made, and I have actually made this for this tutorial quite recently, it's the technique that I will be showing you today. So this is the technique Crazy Patchwork. As I said, there's very, very few rules for this technique. The one general rule is the center piece of fabric that you use needs to have odd edges, so 3, 5, 7, whatever you want to do. The cushion that I showed you from the shop one has a triangle to start with, and so did the heart. Now, with those, when you're doing it, when I say you want odd number of edges, you do need odd number of edges, but also you want the edges to be different lengths. So this was the starting point for this one. So you can see all the edges are different sizes. It makes it more interesting to actually work round. And we're going to go round it in circles. Okay, so this is just a little cushion cover that I've made with, again, bits and bobs. It doesn't have to be just cotton fabric. You can use velvets, voiles, all sorts of things in here. And there's different ways you can do it. So I'll just pop that one to one side. Now, when I say you want to start off with a piece of fabric with an uneven number of edges, I generally go for a 5-sided shape. Sometimes, like I say, I'll use 3. Very rarely I'll use 7. If I'm going to use 7, it would have to be a very large item I'm going to use. And with these, apart from making smaller items, you can make blocks, and then you can join them together with sashings or just butt them up to each other and make a full quilt. Remembering that this is the technique that was used hundreds and hundreds of years ago, with the fabric coming from discarded items of clothing that weren't good enough to use anymore. So the fabric would be cut down and any good parts of it would be used and constructed like this. So first of all, what you need is a foundation piece of fabric. So you can use a lawn fabric. I tend to use calico. I find the structure on it is actually works really nicely. So if you're wanting to make, say, for instance, a 10-inch square, always have your background fabric, your foundation fabric, larger. So if I wanted it to be 10 inches, I would probably go about 11 and 11.5 inches. So I can then cut it down to the correct size that I want it to be. So cut your foundation fabric slightly larger than your finished size of your block, okay? If you are unsure about cutting your fabric with 5 sides without doing anything printed out, what you can do is just draw out the shapes on a piece of paper or a piece of card, okay? Now these ones I've actually drew from a shape that I use for fussy cutting my English paper piecing fabrics, because I do a lot of fussy cutting when I'm doing something like that. Fussy cutting is when you select a particular pattern on a fabric and you want multiple ones possibly of the same area. So I tend to use a see-through template so that I can select the area and make sure I get the same area in all of the pieces I'm cut. So that's how I've originally got those. If you're not happy doing it on paper, you could actually do it onto template plastic, which again is already a regular shape. So if you're unsure of cutting an obscure shape to start with, cut a regular shape. So what we'll do is, I'll do it on a plain piece of fabric actually. I've just got some scraps here. If I just get a plain piece of fabric, and I'll use the larger one so that I can cut it down. I'll do it on the wrong side, it doesn't make any difference really. You might be able to see it. So if I just go around, just very roughly. I'm hoping that you can see that. Does that come out all right? There we go. We can do a little bit darker so that you can see the shape. Okay, so what I could do is actually just cut the shape out as a regular shape. Now this is just a piece of scrap, so this piece of fabric I will keep and that can be used later. All of these little pieces that I cut off are not wasted. They will go in my scrap bag for future use. If I was at home, then I wouldn't be quite so wasteful. I would have positioned everything better. I'm just highlighting the fact that all of those pieces can be used. Now, I have a very regular shape here, as you can see. So what I need to do is change that shape so it's not as regular. So because I know that's absolutely spot on, what I want to do is taper it and take some of the edges off. So I'm going to put my ruler on this corner and I'm going to take that bit off. Now that's still not quite obscure enough for me. So what I'm going to do, instead of having this here, I think we'll go, where should we go? Let's go, no, let's take this bit off, I think. I'll go from here down there. Now that's very different to the original shape we started with, but it still has 5 sides. Okay, so that's how I firstly have achieved my centre piece. Just get rid of those bits there. And I'm going to take this piece. Now I was working with it backwards then, so I can turn it over. Now also I could have fussy cut this. So if I wanted to have a flower, a leaf or something in the centre, or if you're doing it for a child, or you might be doing a scrap one out of leftover bits that you've made a child's quilt, you might want a rabbit or a dragon or something in the centre there. That's easily achievable. So all you need to do now is place your fabric right side up on your foundation fabric, in which case is my calico. Now, if you want to, you can stitch around that. I don't tend to need to do that. It's not an issue for me. So all I want to do now is actually sew a piece of fabric on here. So I'm going to be sewing through the background, so the backing fabric and the top fabric. So I'll just find a piece of fabric here. I've got all sorts of bits and bobs here, and that'll be fine. This just happens to be batik, so it doesn't really matter which way around I use it. So I'm going to place the straight edge to the straight edge here, and I do use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to sew along here. So I think what I'll do is I'll just nip that piece off there. If I can find my scissors. There we go. It doesn't really matter about the size of it because you can change it as you go along. So I'll just nip that piece off there. And now I'm just going to sew along this edge here. I've already got my thread saver in my sewing machine. So out there. And here we go. So using my 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm just sewing along the edge. So I've got the foot to the right hand side, and I'm just sewing down. Now, because I've got a foundation fabric at the back, I'm actually not going to sew onto a thread saver on this occasion. I'm just going to give myself some decent length tails so they don't get sucked down into there. Okay. So all I'm going to do now, I always just like to set the seam just to warm those threads, to relax it so it folds over nicely, and just press that back like so. And that's my first piece attached. So I tend to go round in a clockwise direction, doesn't really matter, your choice entirely. And now what I'm going to do, I've got a straight edge here. So I'm going to choose another piece of fabric and I'm going to go across here. And we've got a very bright yellow one here, so why not use this one? So I'm going to place it so that it's going straight the way over that last piece. Now, you can trim as you go along, it's your choice. Just remember, if you've got a lighter fabric on the top and you choose to leave the one underneath, it will show through, which is why I've bought some fabrics that actually to highlight that, that particular fact. And I'm going to cut that piece off as well. I'll cut that one now, I think, like so. Again, all these pieces you cut off, they'll all be used. These are all complete scraps. Nothing has been used special, as it were. So foot down on there, make sure the tails are pulled back, and just sew straight the way down. Now, the technique I'm showing you now is the technique that tends to be used if you want to embellish afterwards, okay? So as you can see, I've got this loose piece of fabric here. If I don't cut this off, when I lay this over, you can hopefully see the dark area showing through. So I personally choose to just cut that off, like so. Set the seam and roll back. Now, what I could do, if you can see here, there's a little piece of dark still sticking out. And I've done that purposely just to show you a different way of actually getting rid of that dark piece. It's very rare that you actually do this, but it's just if you want to go from a very light colour, as in a white or cream, with a black underneath it. So what you can do is take that to your cutting board and fold it over and then take that edge off completely. Like so, which means now, once we press it back, you're all clear. You've got nothing showing through because I've taken that dark area off. Okay, so this is the technique that you generally use if you want to embellish at the end. So I'm just going to pop another couple of pieces on here just to show you what we can get up to. Okay, so this is the edge that we're doing now. So let's go like that, I think. So you can change the angle of it. I could have had it like that, which is the orientation it's in, or I could change that. And you can change it on every round that you go around. Okay, so let's just have a bit of fun and just go along there. It's quite addictive, I will tell you. You can get totally carried away doing this. And if you fight with yourself in the fact that you like everything to be even, this is a really good one to challenge yourself with, to get out of your comfort zone, basically, and see how you get on. My daughter Claire definitely struggles with not having everything matching, but actually she really, really likes this technique. So this is a darker fabric I've put on, and you can see that I've got pieces sticking out here, but because it's a darker fabric, if I want to, I can just leave those on, like so. Okay, another couple of bits on. And, oh, that's a bit different, isn't it? Let's go there. I'll just pop this on here. Now, I've also got a sample with me to show you that what we can do, if we want to, we can insert embellishments as we go along. So a lot of people that do this technique are the people that are very skilled and do a lot of hand embroidery. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those. I don't tend to do hand embroidery. I love my English paper piecing, but that's probably about as far as it goes with me. I absolutely admire and respect everybody that does that, but it's not something I tend to do. So I'll just pop a last piece on there. Let's see what, oh look, we've got some bits here. These look quite interesting. Let's put a light one on, shall we? Oh, look at that. There we go. As you can see, these really are bits and bobs. So all I'm going to do now, I think I'm going to put that one across there. Now this one is a lighter one, so I might need to trim that dark piece off underneath it, which isn't an issue. Oh, I might have to put the foot down. That's what happens when you, what I call machine hop. I use so many different machines, and some of them have feet that put down automatically, and then I do it to a machine that doesn't do the same. But hey ho, it's all good fun. So there we go. Go press that back. So as you can see, the centre shape that we started with actually looks nothing like the original centre shape. So now I've already gone all the way around. So basically now you start from the beginning again. And what I could do, I could quite easily change. So you'd think this is the original angle, but there's no reason why we can't take an angle this way. We could go that way. You can do lots of things as long as you keep using the original line, so you're going round doing 5 all the way round each time. Okay, so that's how you can prepare something if you want to embellish at the end. I have prepared something here that I've already started. So on this one, this was my centre square. That's not a square. My centrepiece that had 5 edges. And I did initially, well, it was quite accidental actually, use the flower in the middle because it was a very small piece of fabric and it was one that I could just use up. So I've gone round and round, and this is the last piece that I've actually attached, this one here. Now, if I wanted to, what I could do, I could now use a decorative stitch on my sewing machine and go all the way down here if I wanted to. Okay, I'm not going to because I'm very aware of the time, but that's what could be done. Likewise, on the ones you prepared without any insertions, you can still embellish using your decorative stitches on the machine rather than just by hand. Okay, just be aware if you're doing a cushion pad, just be aware that if you're going to put beads and buttons, that they might catch on gentlemen's belts, loops on their trousers or anything like that. Okay, so this could be done with a decorative stitch down here in whatever colour you want to do. It's a really good way of using your small amounts of threads on that you've got left on a spool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a piece of fabric here and I'm actually going to insert lace at the same time. So let's have a look and see what we've got. I've bought some bits and bobs from home. What have I got here? That looks all right, doesn't it? Let's go for that. So when I said to you a little while ago that I have a bag, so I have different coloured bags. So this is my sort of neutrally type bag with pieces of lace and all sorts in. So let's have a look and see what I've got here. What have I got? What should we use, Alicia? Ooh. That looks rather yummy. I quite like the look at that one. Let's go for this one. Okay. So to put an insertion in as we go through, as we actually construct it, what I need to do is find the right side of my lace to start with. It's that way. No, it's that way down. Right, okay. So I'm going to lay my lace on my fabric. Let's see which angle I want to go at. Let's go there. Okay. So I'm going to lay my lace on my fabric like so. Now, if I want to actually pin it, I can do. Not essential. I'll just pop that in there. And another one here. Okay. Now, I've placed my lace right side facing down. If I wanted the lace pointing inwards once I finish sewing, then I would have the right side facing up. All right. So I'm going to take a piece of fabric. Let's chop that bit off there. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place my fabric right side down to the edge of the lace, like so. So that when I sew, I'm actually attaching the lace and my fabric right the way through the whole of the block. Just going to take that to the sewing machine. There we go. And you don't have a problem with this. If you have a piece of lace that has beads attached to it, do be careful you don't break your needle. If that was the case, I would remove the beads that were very close to the seam, personally. There. Okay. And if this happens to be a long piece of lace, if I've got a long piece of lace, I might just leave it until I've actually attached it so that I can cut it off wherever I want it to be. So I'm just going to set that, roll the fabric back, and I like to give that a bit of a press. And now I'm going to roll that lace onto my fabric, because what I want to see is I want to see the lace against it, like so, because I think it's going to show up more. Now, this lace isn't very deep, so if it was a small area, once I sew the next pieces on, it will hold it back. But because this is quite a long strip, what I might do is cut that off there. I'm just going to put a stitch through that just to hold that down in place, because if this is going to be used in a quilt, I don't want it to get caught in anything. So I've got a cream thread in, so I'm just going to sew through the centre of those little flowers, just to hold them down in position, and it won't detract from the look that I'm trying to achieve. And trust me, you make things like this and they make incredible personal gifts. They really do. So there we go. As you can see now, I have just put a row of stitch in, which is now holding that lace completely in place. So all I need to do now is now lay a piece of fabric over here and basically keep going. So that is how you actually construct crazy patchwork without using rulers, okay? This one is one that I did for this tutorial. This one, I started off with a triangle here, okay? Like I say, this is really pretty. It's just got lots and lots of different bits and bobs. I had great fun doing it. And I know my daughter, I know she'll like this in her bedroom. So I hope that has inspired you to hang on to embellishments that can be used, whether it's buttons, lace. I've even used pieces of very, very old lace that have been passed down to me that were on the edges of handkerchiefs or placemats or anything like that. And they really are worth cutting and hanging on to. So thank you for joining us today. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.